This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the NFL's new year officially began yesterday at 3 o'clock. The Packers already had two contracts in the work. That would be with 49ers guard Aaron Banks and Raiders cornerback Nate Hobbs. The Packers and Banks agreed on a 4-year contract, a signing bonus of $29 million, big roster bonuses due in 2026 and 2027, and a cap number under $10 million in 2025. Banks will also average $19.25 million per year, making him the third highest paid left guard in the NFL. Hobbs battled injury throughout his time in Las Vegas. He missed 17 games in 4 seasons, including 6 last year. Yesterday also saw the Packers lose their running back A.J. Dillon to the Philadelphia Eagles, center Josh Myers to the Jets, cornerback Eric Stokes to the Raiders, and defensive tackle T.J. Slayton to the Bengals. Turning to the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks are looking to snap a 3-game losing streak as they welcome in the Los Angeles Lakers to the Fiserv Forum tonight for a tip-off at 6:30. Now, LeBron James will not be in attendance. He's dealing with a left groin injury, even went back to Los Angeles for medical treatment. The Bucks currently sit 4th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 36-28.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
They believe in protecting the families and children in our farming communities. Kids love to be included in the daily farm activities, but accidents can happen quickly. Reduce the chance of injury by making sure your farm is a safe environment for adults and kids. Learn more at ruralmutual.com.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
The Wisconsin Badgers are moving on in the Big Ten tournament. That's after defeating Northwestern 70-63 down in Indianapolis. John Tonje and Nolan Winter both had 18 points. The Badgers will now face UCLA tomorrow at 1:30. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
And now Wisconsin will dribble it out. A test early, and then they played this game in the second half at arm's length. And the Badgers advance to play UCLA.
Greg, what allowed you guys to open this one up midway through the second half?
Well, we got some shots to go down. You know, we got to the free throw line. Thought defensively we were really good for the most part the whole second half.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Now, I'm a sports fan first, before a talk show host, but it is my job, it is my profession, my employment to host a sports talk radio show every night. And there are times where my fandom and my job sometimes contradict. I always want our teams to win because that gets people excited. That makes for better radio most of the time. Sometimes it makes for good radio to get angry and to get frustrated too. But for the most part, I want our teams to succeed because I want fans to be invested, which means they want to listen and they want to call in. Selfishly today, as a sports talk host, I'm glad this game started at 1:30 and I'm glad that it ended around 3:40 because that gave me just enough time to cut some of the post-game audio to get ready for the show. I did not want this game bleeding over past 4 o'clock because we've done that with Brewer games, right? Where a Brewer game ends at 4:20 and it's hanging in the balance and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what kind of show are we going to have tonight? How's this game going to go? What do I need to be ready for? What audio I need to have? From a talk show perspective, could not have asked for a better afternoon. The Badgers win comfortably and they get it done before the show starts. Again, selfishly, as a talk show host, I'll lay my cards on the table. Every once in a while, it's like, yeah, I want my team to win, but could we also win by about 3:45, 3:50? That would be great. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. A little bit of a de facto Badger postgame show, at least for the first hour of the show. Maybe we'll change things up in hour number 2. But Wisconsin Northwestern finishing up about 15, 20 minutes ago. They beat Northwestern 70-63. I think their biggest lead was close to 20. Let me see. Is it ESPN box score? Yeah, they give you the largest lead. Wisconsin at one point led by 18, which is kind of a spooky number because that was their lead against Oregon. And Northwestern hit a couple of shots, and I think they went on like an 8-2 run in the final 3 minutes. So it looks a little bit closer than it was for most of the first half. You heard in that little that exchange with Greg Gard and the Big Ten Network saying, yeah, you played the second half at arm's length. That's an accurate representation of how this game went. And I want to react. I want to talk about this. And I'll go to your phone calls right here in the first segment. If you're ready and you have thoughts on the game, 608-321-1670. You can text that number. You can comment on the live stream as well, the simulcast. up and running on YouTube and Facebook. Just search the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills, and it streams every day at on Twitter at Wisco Grant. The first half, the Badgers started slow. It felt like they were hunting 3-point shots early, and Crowell made one early. It kind of felt like for the first couple of minutes of the game, they were swinging the ball, looking for open looks, and just trying to get some shots up, almost like a shoot around. Let's get a feel. And their threes weren't going early on, and Northwestern took a little bit of a lead early on. I think they were, 5-8-point lead kind of early on, and Wisconsin started a little bit slowly. And the broadcast did a really good job pointing this out. If you were able to watch this afternoon on Big Ten Network, they stopped moving side to side as much, and they just started getting downhill, and they started getting into the paint. And I think maybe it was someone on the halftime show. I think maybe it was Jordan Davis. It wasn't Rayfeld Davis. I think it was Jordan Davis. And the Big Ten Network's got no shortage of really good analysts. I always think they do a really good job broadcasting the first couple of days of the Big Ten tournament. But they pointed out when Wisconsin started going downhill and when they started operating north to south, the east to west, the side to side, that opens up naturally, right? You're going to have opportunities to kick the ball out to the wing, where I feel like Max Klesmet has operated at a really high level as a three-point shooter. That opens up shots often in the short corner for guys like Kamari McGee. He had a couple of those today, which was great to see. It kind of felt like things were back to the natural order. Things were back to being balanced with Klesmet as a starter, with McGee coming off the bench, who did McGee things. Some nice energy, some pop. There was a play in the first half where he was shot out of a cannon on a fast break. There was a loose ball kind of around the free throw line, top of the key. And before you even knew what happened, Kamari McGee had grabbed it and was just shot out of a cannon straight at the other. Like the north to south, the straight line speed, it was like watching a wide receiver. That's what Kamari McGee is really good at. He's undersized and there's some limitations, but as a spark plug off the bench and an occasional spot up 3-point shooter, especially in the short corner, he's really excelled this year, and he was back in that role today. That felt really nice. Klesmet's impact as a starter was immediately felt. And it's not like they shot the cover off the ball in this game. They were fine. They didn't have a horrible 3-point shooting performance. They made, let's see, how many did they end up making? It was nothing overly impressive, but it wasn't putrid either. They hit 32% of their threes. They hit a third of their threes. They hit 8 of their 25 attempts. That'll do against Northwestern, and that might work against other teams in the Big Ten too, if the Badgers are able to also attack the paint and play through Crowell. It wasn't Crowell's day so much as it was Nolan Winter's day. He was everywhere around, and he drew a lot of fouls. And I think as the game progressed, and a big reason why Wisconsin was able to keep Northwestern at arm's length was their defense, as Greg Gard mentioned, and you heard that in the intro. But it was also, we have more guys than Northwestern. We are deeper. We can wear you out in a war of attrition. And the way that the Badgers shoot free throws, like, that's the type of game that they shouldn't be afraid to play. I want them to be able to hit 3-pointers, and I want them to be able to operate at a quick clip, and I want to see Tanja get going, and I want to see the fireworks. But on afternoons where it's not going to happen, this team has an incredible second pitch. It's just get downhill and get to the free throw line. Because you have more bodies, you're going to be able to win a war of attrition if it's a lot of fouls on both ends. And you're also going to make more free throws than just about every other team that you play. So Wisconsin hit some threes, but you're able to see their second and third, and in some instances, even their fourth pitch on display today. And Northwestern just straight up isn't as good as Wisconsin. I thought this was a pretty perfect way to start out the Big Ten tournament. Let me explain. If Wisconsin would have beat Northwestern by 7, and at one point led by 18, they had a pretty comfortable lead through most of the second half. If they had won this game by hitting 17 threes, you know what I mean? I wouldn't complain about it, but I also don't know that I want that performance wasted on Northwestern. I also don't know that I want the Badgers to need to hit 15 threes against Northwestern. I'm glad that it wasn't just John Tanja, although it was nice to see a couple shots go down for him because he's been cold the last couple games. But they weren't carried by their 3-point shooting. They weren't carried by John Tanja. I thought it was overall a pretty well-rounded game in which the Badgers had to do a little bit of everything. A good performance, a good game to just establish yourself in the Big Ten tournament, and now to position yourself with a little momentum and a little probably more comfort going into tomorrow against UCLA. I likened this game today to the perfect first day of a fishing trip. I love fishing analogies, right? And I think even if you're not a fisher person, even if you're not an angler, you can relate to this on some level, right? If you're going somewhere for a week and you're going fishing, and you have different days. All right, on Monday, we're going to go to this lake, and on Tuesday, we're going to go to this river, and on Wednesday, we got a boat, we're going out there, and on Friday, we're going out with friends on Friday, and you have all of these different spots that you're going to hit, and you've been planning this fishing trip. I love a good fishing trip, right? You never want the first day of your trip to be the best day of your trip. You know what I mean? I had this happen in 2020. A couple friends and I, right when the pandemic hit, because all of our bosses were like, we don't want you part-time college kids coming into work. Get out of here. Just don't come into work for a couple of weeks. So we're all like, well, school's canceled for a couple of weeks. Our employers don't want us in the building. All right, fine. We'll drive out west and we'll go fish for a week. It was in like March. And I'll never forget this. The first day, it's the first time I'd ever fished this river. I've been there for an hour. And in the first hour of fishing, I hook up. I mean, this fish I was jacked up. And I'm like, man, if this is an omen for how this week is going to go, like, strap in, because this is going to be the best fishing trip ever. It was the best fish I caught the entire week. We were there for 5 or 6 days. I probably caught 1 or 2 more fish the entire rest of the week. You don't want the first day of your fishing trip to be the best. You don't want that first day to set expectations and to set excitement so high that, like, for the rest of the trip, you're never going to get back there. We're never going to experience that again. You don't want the first day to be the best day. What you want from the first day of a fishing trip, let's get the fishing rods out. Let's get in the groove of making some casts and, you know, seeing the ball go through the net a couple times. Get in the layup line. You know what I mean? Get some shots up. Let's catch a couple fish. We don't want to get skunked, but we just want to build a base for the rest of the week. I think that's the type of game that Wisconsin played today. Saw some threes go down, and I think that was especially important for Kamari McGee, who went from a 50% shooter to, I'm not sure he's ever shot a basketball before, right? Kamari McGee knocking down a couple of short corner threes. That was great, because that's going to need to continue. John Tonje hitting a couple of threes, especially in the second half, and also, you know, taking some guys off the dribble and making some contested shots. That's nice. Get the ball rolling for John Tonje a little bit. But I don't need them to hit 17 threes. And I don't need John Tonje to go for 35. I don't need that against Northwestern, not on the first day of the Big Ten tournament. Let's have a little success from the three-point line. Let's get Max Klesmit back in the flow of things. Get Kamari McGee back in his intended God-given role. Let's get John Tonje feeling it a little bit. Let's build a nice base. You know what I mean? It's like the first day of the fishing trip. Let's just get out there, sling a couple of casts, you know, get a couple fish in the boat. But we don't want it to be, you know, wall to wall. We don't want this to be our best performance of the tournament. We don't want this to be our best day of fishing of the entire trip. You don't want to blow that load on day number 1. So if Wisconsin would have hit 15 threes today, or if Tonje would have scored 30, they wouldn't have been mad about it. But I almost think, and maybe this is my you know, red-colored glasses as a Badgers fan, I thought this was a nice base builder moving forward. Does that make sense? Klesmit getting worked back in, Kamari McGee settling back into his role, Tonje getting a little bit of a feel, but I don't need you to go for 35. I don't need you to carry the team today. Just start to build some comfort and build some momentum. It's only day 1 of the tournament for you guys. So I thought, all in all, a lot to be pleased with and a nice start, right? And I think that's what matters most today. Are you setting yourself up for a nice little run here over the weekend? And now you got to show down a rematch with UCLA, a team that you probably should have beat the first time, but they had some freakazoid freshman who nobody had ever heard of, all of a sudden going for 20, and it was the last leg of a long road trip. You're out on the West Coast. A rematch with UCLA tomorrow, who, you know, maybe they're a little rusty. They haven't had a chance to get some shots up. They haven't had a chance to see the ball go through the net like the Badgers had today. So I think sometimes a bye can be detrimental. It's an age-old debate on sports talk radio of rest versus rust. I thought Wisconsin built a very nice base today, got some positive momentum, got the ball going in the right direction, guys settling back into their roles and getting some comfort. And I think they established themselves very well today and set themselves up very well today for the rest of the weekend. Hopefully we're talking about this team playing on Saturday, and in a perfect world, you know, like last year, into the championship game on Sunday. 608-321-1670. If you have any thoughts, you can text them in. You can call them in. I'm going to break a little bit early. We'll come back. If there's any reaction that you have, again, you're more than welcome. We're treating this like a Badger postgame show a little bit. And then Zach Heilprin is going to call us around 4:35. He's down there in Indianapolis. He's covering the games. So he's going to give us his reaction to what he saw and what he heard, and we'll see if he's aligned with some of the things that I'm thinking and the things that we're talking about. But I want to give ourselves a little bit of time after this first break to take some calls and dig a little bit deeper into this game before we get to Zach at 4:35. So to you next, Badgers fans, how did you feel today? Wisconsin advancing through round number 1, I guess round number 2, but round 1 for them. 70-63. They led by 18, 15 points through most of the second half against Northwestern. A pretty good start. What do you think? I'll go to your calls next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Greg, what allowed you guys to open this one up midway through the second half?
Well, we got some shots to go down. You know, we got to the free throw line. Thought defensively we were really good for the most part the whole second half.
Nolan Winter, not a guy who a lot of folks, even those that follow your program, think of when they think of your team first, but he's really developed into a guy who can do a lot of different things. What did you see from him this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, he did a really good job, I thought, on Martinelli defensively. And I think obviously at 7 feet, the way he can move, it can give Martinelli some problems. And, and then offensively, he got some things going. He's able to put the ball on the floor. He's a really talented player. He's just starting to grow into his own. He's got a ways to go, but, we needed him today, and he was really good.
Now you'll get ready for a matchup with UCLA tomorrow. You guys played a wildly entertaining game a couple of months ago, 85-83. What are you expecting from the Bruins on Friday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, they're really good defensively. I think 85-83 is probably uncharacteristic for both of us, but we know it's a really good team, and rest up and watch film and get ready for tomorrow.
Greg, congrats. We'll see you then.
All right, thanks, Rick.
It's Greg Gard after the game, talking about some of the things that his team did well. I thought they did a fine job at mostly everything. It was not a game where they shot the cover off of the ball, but they got some shots to go down. It's not a game where John Tonje had to carry them, but he didn't have a bad game either. Built a nice little base. Klesmit back in the swing of things. He hit a disgusting step back three from the right wing early on in the second half. I was like, ooh. And Nolan Winter really, really, really solid game too is actually I believe their leading scorer. I think John Tonje and Nolan Winter both with 18. So I guess they were co-leading scorers. We're treating this as a little bit of a Badger post-game show, at least for the first 40 minutes of the show. Zach Heilprin going to be here in about 10 minutes. He's down in Indianapolis covering the game, so we'll get the latest from him, what he heard and saw in the building. The Badgers beat down there. I thought I saw Nick Osen down there and Evan Flood and others. Andy Herman in an hour. So we're going to talk Packers as well. We'll probably get to that in hour number 2, but I want your Badgers thoughts now. 608-321-1670. Let's go to the phones. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Big Ron in Jersey. How are you, Grant?
I'm doing great, Big Ron. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm really satisfied with the Badgers win. You know, if they lose that game, they're probably a dreaded 5 seed, right?
Yeah. I like the term
NCAA
satisfied. That's a good way to describe that win as a first step in this tournament.
Yeah, although I'll tell you, when you blow an 18-point lead and the point spread is 8.5 and you only win by 7, there's some gamblers that are a little annoyed right now with the backdoor cover. But yeah, just echoing the sentiments of the audio clip you just had. Nolan Winter had a great stat line. He only played 26 minutes. He was 4 or 5 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3-point line, 18 points, 6 boards, and throwing a couple assists. They got to retain him. I don't want to see him in the transfer portal.
Yeah, 2 steals as well. And, you know, he hit 10 free throws. I thought that was a big part of the story for the Badgers today because they had some threes go down. They didn't have a miserable shooting day, but it was clear that they were going to need a second and a third pitch to really win this one without drama. And part of that was getting to the free throw line and Nolan Winter finding those mismatches, playing through contact and cashing in at the line against a less deep team like Northwestern. They can't afford to eat all those fouls, maybe like the Badgers could. I thought he was a really important part of their game from the free throw line from a physicality standpoint as well today.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm pumped. I'm going to Vegas for the first and second round of the NCAA tournament.
You're staying there a whole week?
No, I'm going Wednesday night, and I'll fly out on a red eye Saturday night. You can't be in Vegas more than you can't be in Vegas more than 3 days. You'll go insane.
Well, no, what I thought you meant was the first 2 weekends. So the first 2 rounds, Wednesday night through Sunday, that would make more sense. Yes.
Yeah. And I heard you're going to Mexico for a wedding. Where are you going in Mexico?
It's an all-inclusive near Cancun. I don't know exactly which one.
Oh, okay, Riviera Maya. Yeah,
probably one of those. I'm not sure that it's that one. I also, bad news, Brewers fans. And I look, Ron, I don't pretend to be so narcissistic. I'm not that narcissistic where I think that every time I take a day off, everyone's like miserable. So I'm going to be off next Tuesday through Friday because I'll be in Mexico for a wedding. It's not even a vacation. It's going to celebrate somebody else. But then on Monday, that's the Brewers home opener. And my boss all but demanded that I go with the coworkers who are taking a bus. So I'm going to be off next a week from Monday as well to go to the Brewer game. So not a bad week for me next week.
I'm going to miss you because I got to tell you, you bring a lot of joy and happiness to your audience's lives, including myself. And I just want to thank you for that. And you're going to be sorely missed.
Well, Big Ron, I think you'll get by, but I appreciate that. I just like to get out in front of it because the Cone Rollers and LaCroix Butlers of the world get up my rear end when I'm gone. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I got to go to a wedding and then I'm going to go to the Brewers opening day. Maybe I'll do like an internet show. I'll do a live stream. Won't be able to put it on the radio, but when I get home, we'll do a little Brewers show. That'll be my promise next weekend is I'll give you some Brewers opening day show. It's just not going to be on the radio. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Hello? I wonder if is this a phone issue? It's always line number 2, pesky line number 2. So for whatever reason, if you didn't get on, you can call back in. I'll get you in. A text here about Packers free agency. Because after all these moves so far this offseason, where do you see the Packers finishing in the North? We're going to hit that now, number 2. So hang around for that or look for that in the podcast if you're only listening for a little bit. We'll circle back to that. This text just says no NBA lounge. Why would I do an NBA lounge today, man? The Badger game just finished. It literally just finished. So that's where we're at least going to start the show. Zach Heilprin going to be here in about 10 minutes. He's down in Indy. Let's try this phone call again. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Are you... I'm starting to think it's my phone. Starting to think it's on this end. Try one more time. Promise to get you on. Sorry about that. To reiterate what I said in segment number 1, I think Big Ron put this very well in his own words too. I think satisfied. I think that's a good way to describe this result. Wisconsin winning 70-63, but leading by 15, 18 points for a large stretch of half number 2. So I'm satisfied with this. John Tonje had some shots go through. I like seeing that, but he didn't have to carry Wisconsin. Wisconsin hit some threes, but they didn't have to hit 20 to win. I think this is a nice base building game, hopefully for round 2 tomorrow and beyond. Let's try this one more time. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Good morning, Grant. Or evening, I should say.
Good
Chad.
morning. Good morning, Chad.
On first.
What's up, Chad?
Well, it's the Aaron Rodgers annual watch. Will he or won't he?
I feel like people are turning this into Aaron Rodgers' watch. We don't need to be pulling our hair out over Aaron Rodgers' decision right now. Like, I'm interested in where he's going. I'm interested. I'm following. But so many people are like, oh, God, he's keeping us waiting on pins and needles. Well, then get off the pins and needles and just chill. I don't know.
So what camp are you in? I want him to – I would like to see him win with the Steelers or implode with the Vikings. That's the camp.
I suppose both would make me happy. Both outcomes would be good. Yeah, I would like to avoid seeing him go to the Vikings, but if you tell me he goes to the Vikings and it's going to tank their season, well, I'll take that because that helps the Packers.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, it's so funny because even Bears fans can get on board with that. I remember when I was living in Chicago when Favre went to the Vikings, and then the second year imploded and, had just the awful run of luck. Kind of like Rodgers had in his, first 2 years with the Jets.
Yeah.
Just awful luck.
Yeah, a lot of bad luck. And the Vikings at least had talent, like when he went there for year number 2. Chad, I appreciate it, and I like musing about Aaron Rodgers. It's just we're taking a couple Badger calls here before our next break. Life lesson to be learned here. This is not something that we need to lose our mind over, Aaron Rodgers' decision. When he was a Green Bay Packer and we were trying to figure out whether he'd be back or not, yeah, that's something that we worried about because that directly impacted our team. I don't care how long he takes to decide where he's going to play. It's not my problem, right? I'm going to follow it. When there's news, I'm going to talk about it because it's entertaining. But so many people are like, Rodgers, why can't he decide? Man, free agency opened yesterday. I'm assuming that Rodgers decides tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that he's going to decide by Monday, which to me is a pretty reasonable time frame. Anything past that, yeah, you can take shots at him. But right now, especially Adam Schefter, I'm so sick of this. Schefter, free agency just opened. And also, you're an NFL. This is your job. This is good business for you. Oh, I hate having to wait on players. Well, then I tell you what, Schefter, thousands of other careers. Go on Indeed. There's thousands of other careers out there, and none of them involve waiting to hear from an agent or from a player on where they're signing. You picked the one job where you have to worry about this. Sorry, I guess. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Tony from Texas.
Hey, Tony.
Unlike the NBA, thank you for telling us you're taking today off. You got to use your PTO.
Well, I do. I absolutely do. Otherwise, my boss comes to me and it's like, hey, you got days. And then I got to take them all at once. And that could be during football season. That'd be worse. So not a bad time, right? I'll be back following next weekend. So we'll be able to talk about whatever the Badgers do. Won't be the end of the world. Also, before you criticize me for it, Marquette also did win this afternoon. That was a nice game for them. That was a nice win over Xavier.
I was going to talk up my AAU team. We got this 6'7" guy that Greg Gard would like, wink, wink, that you know what I mean. Fundamentally great, inside, outside, 6'7", could just dunk and shoot outside. I'm telling you, this guy is really good. I lost 2 of my other big men, Grant, and no, I didn't bang their moms, and I'm so pissed off about it. I could have had the best team in Texas. Now I'm probably going to be about top 10. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, good to see the Badgers win. I'm really excited about this tournament. I'm going to be sad I can't hear Big Ron's stock tip. Ron's stock tips are to me, something I actually look forward to. Eric from I-90, Uncle Packer, Cone Roller, you will be missed, Grant, that day. But March Madness, spring training, the draft, no one's even talking about the draft anymore. Everything's right around the corner. I can't wait.
No, and I'm a big fan, Tony. I hope that, your thing with the moms, I hope that continues. Let's make good decisions there. Sorry to hear about your AAU team. I like Big Ron stock tips too. And I like Eric on I-90. I did not watch Survivor last night, so I won't be able to, if Eric calls at any point tonight, I won't be able to, because I don't know who got sent home last night, so I can't speak to it. 608-321-1670. Zach is posting videos with Steven Crowell, so he's going to join us at some point. I text him, I'm like, hey, if 4:45 or 5 o'clock, if that works better, we can move Zach back a little bit. Andy Herman, Pack-A-Day Podcast, going to be here at 5:30. I just want to make sure anybody looking for a Badgers post-game show, we got time to take calls and get people in. This text says, tell Big Ron, see him there. LOL, this texter must be going to Vegas as well. All right, Cincy needs cheap talent and O-line help desperately. What if the bank signing was because the Packers want to trade Jordan Morgan and a first for Hendrickson? Maybe Josh is re-signed for less. I think there's an angle there. I think it would probably be Rasheed Walker. I don't think they have any interest in trading Jordan Morgan. I don't know that they want to ultimately pay Rasheed Walker. He's going to need a contract after this year. And I've heard that the Packers have been sniffing around, asking around to see if there's any interest. So a trade possibly. I think the signing of Banks is going to lead to different things. I think this is the first move that's going to signal plenty of changes and schematic or alignment changes or personnel changes. This is just step number one. And we could theorize about what it means. I would be surprised if trading Jordan Morgan is one of the next steps. Trading Rasheed Walker? Possibly. Jordan Morgan, they just drafted him. They don't like giving up on cheap contracts, especially ones that haven't even had a chance to play yet. All right, let's take a break. I got a text from Zach. He's good to go. So we'll come back here in about 5 minutes with Zach, get his thoughts. He's just leaving the field house, the Gainbridge Field House in Indianapolis, where he watched the Badgers take down Northwestern to advance to tomorrow to play UCLA. The final score 70-63, but it wasn't really that close for most of the second half. So we'll talk about the game with Zach coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Phenomenal. It's great to be back out there with my best friends.
What was this first half like when you were on and off the floor watching kind of a different offense? John Tonje didn't really get going until late, but you have so many different guys that can do it. How much is that part of your DNA?
I think it's a big part. I think we got things going defensively there late in the first half, and that sort of opened our transition offense and our half-court offense a little bit. So just looking to build off that in the second half.
Thanks, Max. Good luck in the second.
Sweet. Thank you, guys.
That's Max Klesmik going into the halftime break into the locker room, courtesy of Big Ten Network. I was covering the game today here in the studio from a fan perspective, a television perspective, to notice the little things on the broadcast, interviews like that. Zach Heilprin, our sports director, and the voice that you hear on the camp and on the swing and on the updates as well, he's down in Indianapolis. Zach, you're covering the game from a media perspective. What were maybe a couple of things from today's game before, during, after that that you saw and that you heard and that you noticed that maybe us folks at home, maybe things that we missed out on?
Well, I don't want to be that guy, that media guy that complains about everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to complain about something before we get into this. And
Sure.
That would be, it has nothing to do with you. I
Okay.
know you're probably thinking, oh God, this is going to be something about me. It's
That's
not.
correct.
It is. Yeah, exactly. I am predictable. But no, it's not about you. It's about the Big Ten. They have, at the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament, you always get to sit courtside, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you get to see some things and hear some things that you otherwise wouldn't if you were at home. And the Big Ten has delivered a big FU to the media and threw us up in the second level. No assigned seating. The internet was in and out. And so, yeah, it was a little bit tough. So, like, when you ask that question, like, what are some things that you saw that maybe we didn't see? A little bit tough to say that there's a lot that I saw that you did not see. I'm guessing you may have seen more than I did for a large portion of the game. However, we get to talk to the players afterwards, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is one part. But you also heard something that I didn't hear in the moment, and that was what Stephen Crowell said when he got technical, because that came
Yeah.
across the broadcast. That came across the broadcast pretty good, right?
Yeah, and you talked to Steve. I saw the clip that you posted. You talked to him about that moment where he got the block and then he yelled something. It looked pretty brief and it sounded pretty brief, but whatever he said or the way that he said it, I believe is what Steve told you was the stare down and not the actual phrase that he said.
Correct. Yeah, the stare down that was like a half a second was a little bit too long for the officiating crew managing today's game. But I think that they were also very, very things got tighter after that Martinelli flagrant, right? Like after. And they brought these guys together. While Carter Gilmore was shooting those free throws, they brought everybody together. The other guys were on the floor, and they said something to them. And I think it was, and asked them later, and it was like, we're going to start calling this a little bit closer. There's essentially a zero tolerance. We're not going to deal with any of that. We're not going to let this thing get out of hand. And so I think Stephen Crowell was the guy that took it on the cheeks for that. But so yeah, that obviously stood out. And then it was, Nolan Winter, talking to Nolan Winter after the game, he wasn't sure he was going to play today for sure. Wow. I know Greg Gard said, we expect him to be out there, but he didn't say that he was going to be out there, but he felt good at shoot around this morning. And then in warm-ups felt good, but he had his arm, or had his shoulder, I should say, all wrapped up after the game. And I asked him what happened. They said they still don't know exactly what the injury was, or not what the injury was, but like what happened and why it happened. And there was some initial concern after the Penn State game, but then, he felt better, and but he still wasn't sure until this morning. Then he comes out and has 18 points, his most points in more than 2 months, and it was really, really good. So big fan of both the bigs with what Steven Krall did on that one shot, and then Nolan Winter put together a really, really nice offensive day.
So my big picture take about this game was I think it's a nice start because they hit some threes, but they weren't reliant on the three. They got to the free throw line, which is an important part of their game. That's an important second or third pitch, the way this team can lean on the opposition and just continue to, we're going to the line. We're going to the line. We're going to stack those fouls up. That's another way that they can play. They had to do a little bit of that. And Tanjay, I thought, especially in the second half, got it going, but they also didn't need to rely on Tanjay to carry them. So I thought all of these little parts of this team that are so crucial, I thought they got a little taste and they built a little base in all of those little different areas to set themselves up, hopefully, for tomorrow and beyond. Did you see it that way?
I do. I especially see it that way with John Tanjay. He has been a little bit of a slump. I don't know anybody that wants to actually call it that, but when we talked to the guys afterwards and asked, Kamari McGee about it, and all it takes is one shot to go in, and you start feeling it, and you start feeling good about it. And Tanjay he got a step back with a guy right in his face, and he hit that one, and they get a wide open one, and yeah, those things I think are going to be significant come tomorrow against the UCLA team that is going to score. We saw that in the time that they played before. They're going to score, and Wisconsin needs to stick with them because we have not seen the Wisconsin. Let's be fair about it. We have not seen the Wisconsin offense that we've seen much of the year. I wouldn't even say today did not see it. Right? I mean, 70 points, and it was not necessarily a great shooting performance. They haven't scored 80. I think it's 4 straight games they haven't scored 80. So they're going to need John Tanjay tomorrow. They can't be going. And I don't know that 70 is going to win it tomorrow. Even though Wisconsin's playing better defense, I don't know that 70 is going to win it tomorrow.
McGee hit a couple of short corner threes. He hit at least one. I feel like maybe there was a second. Okay, so yeah. I thought with Klesmit coming back today, McGee taking a little bit more of a backseat to the role that he was so successful in early in the year. What did you see both in Klesmit in his return to the court, and then how that impacted another player like McGee?
Yeah, I mean, Klesmit, you're not sure exactly what you're going to get, right? Because he had been out for 3 games, almost 4. He essentially left very early in that Washington game. But he said, I think he's 100%. Usually if you're coming back, you're maybe not feeling like you're all the way back. But I think because he sat for as long as he did, he was able to get almost all the way back to where it was. He said he was 100%, said he felt good. And, he was moving around pretty well, I thought, today. And he had that step back.
That was
3-pointer.
nasty.
It was an 8-point lead at that point. Because Northwestern had cut the lead down to 8. Then he hits a 3, and then Cam hits a 3, and it's back up to 14, and the game is over. I thought we can talk about it at the end of this, but I thought Doug Collins kind of waved the white flag there that a lot of other coaches would not have in terms of not fouling and not pressuring and all that good stuff. But yes, in terms of Klesmit playing his role, allowing Cam to come off the bench and play a little bit of a different role. And I know Cam played more than he had normally would if Klesmit had not missed as much time as he did. But I think Cam off the bench is just we call it a spark plug. You can call it a spark plug, instigator, whatever you want to call it. He is just so much better coming off the bench and just giving you that little pop. And the same thing with him and Carter Gilmore, right? One guy gets big, one guy gets small, and that is their lift off the bench. And I thought certainly Cam did that today, and they need that going forward for sure.
Spark plug off the bench. It's such a cliche term that we say a lot.
I know.
I don't know that it's ever been as true for a player as it is for Kamari McGee. That play, I think it was either early in the second or late in the first on that fast break where the ball was loose at the top of the key. I've never seen a player, that's hyperbole, but the way that, he was shot out of a cannon, Zach. He collected that ball and got to the opposing rim and put it in faster than I've just seen just about any other player do it. That's a spark plug in the purest sense of the word or the phrase.
It is. I mean, it definitely is because he's not that, he's that guy. He's the guy in the team that can do that, right? Maybe John Blackwell can, but Cam from starting spot to 100 top speed is as good as anybody on this team.
Yeah.
And you saw it there for sure.
Zach Heilprin is here. You can hear him on the camp in the swing. I was listening to the camp on the way in. Badger football practice started today. How lucky are we that we have Jesse covering that? Zach, you down in Indy. And hey, how nice is it? You're guaranteed to at least be there for one more night. And I know there have been past years, Zach, where you've made reservations and then you've had to hightail it home a little bit early. So to get through the first night, UCLA tomorrow. What do you remember from the first UCLA game that will have to go a little bit differently tomorrow? Refresh us if you can.
They got to get stops. They did not get stops in that game. They put up 80 points and they didn't, and they lost, right?
That's right.
So in talking to the guys, Kamari McGee said it, Max Klesmith said it, at least one other guy said it. Like, this is a game that they've got circled. They've got them at. It's not just this one. This is one of the teams that beat them, right? So UCLA is one of the teams that beat them. I heard while I was interviewing somebody else, I think it was Stephen Crowell talking to somebody else. He's like, yeah, we want Michigan, we want Maryland, we want they want all the teams that they lost to and have another shot. So they get UCLA, right, and then they would get Michigan State, and then potentially Maryland and Michigan in the final, and that's exactly what they're hoping for. But yeah, UCLA is just playing some good basketball. Beat down USC last weekend. That kind of put the nail in the coffin for the Badgers' hopes of not having to play today. But yeah, it's going to be about defense for Wisconsin. They did not get the stops, and they are a much better defensive team now than they were back then. And it's going to have to show up tomorrow for sure.
In what ways have they improved? Because Greg Gard talked about it directly after the game. He's like, I thought we defended really well in the second half. So is that a schematic thing that guys needed time to work on? Is it a chemistry thing, playing off each other? In what ways have they improved defensively?
I think it's absolutely a chemistry thing.
Okay.
I do. Absolutely, it's a chemistry thing. It's a guy like John Tanji today. There was one possession where he ran with his guy around, then got up into him, was able to poke the ball away, and then save it right before going out of bounds. Like, those are the type of plays that I don't know that John Tanji was making earlier in the year. So it's both. It's that, but it's also, as a team, being able to switch. And the thing is, Grant, they were horrible last Saturday. Horrible. Defensively against Penn State, horrible, and then they come out and play the way they did today. And again, it's not necessarily a very good offensive team, you would say, Northwestern, right?
Yeah,
outside of Martinelli, and even Martinelli. I mean, he's as YMCA as they come, right? Like, that is. I don't want to be I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, he is. That's exactly what he is. I don't know that there's anything special to his game. He just puts the ball in the basket a bunch. And he also shoots jump shots for free throws. So
that is weird.
There's that as well. Haven't seen that since Ryan Evans back in the day. I think
Ebo was in the studio with me. He brought that up this afternoon. It's unbelievable the way that you two operate. Oh my God. And we're going to miss you on Thorson and Heilprin tonight. Ebo's all by his lonesome at Monk's.
Is he by himself?
He's doing it by himself. At least that's what he said when I talked to him. He didn't make plans to replace you because, honestly, Zach, you're not replaceable.
I mean, I replaced him, but that was only because I couldn't do it by myself. Like, he's a different animal. He can do anything by himself. He's a different breed. He's built different.
Yeah, he is. Zach Heilprin for another minute or two. Okay, so what's the plan in Indy? What are you in the college basketball beat? What's the plan tonight? Are you going to watch more games? Are you going to go out and celebrate? Are you going to work the streets and see if you can connect with sources, or what's the plan down there?
Well, if I'm being totally honest, Grant, I did not book a hotel for tonight. So
wow.
I am, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're sleeping in the car?
No, I just haven't. I mean, I booked it now. I just hadn't booked it before the game.
Gotcha.
Because, and I did the same thing last year, right? Like we had this conversation last year, and it felt like
so.
We did it Thursday. Did the hit Thursday from Minneapolis for like, oh yeah, they shot the ball really, really well against who was it? Maryland. Yeah, they had a great game against Maryland. Then they went and beat Northwestern on Friday. And I'm like, yeah, well, I guess got to find another place to stay, and got to find another place to stay. Minneapolis slightly cheaper than what it is in Indianapolis these days. So that company credit card didn't get a workout tonight somehow, some way.
Well, I like that you didn't jinx it. Last year, you probably didn't think they'd advance very far. This year, you probably thought differently. But as soon as you start booking rooms, you get yourself in trouble. Well, I don't know. Did you? I would imagine you did.
I picked Northwestern. I mean, I picked Wisconsin, but they lost 3 of 5 coming in here. I don't know that I was full of belief that it was going to look like they're going to find a way to win today. They struggled with Northwestern before, so you never know. There's just no reason to book a hotel if you're not going to need it. I'm a company man. I don't put hotel rooms on the company card unless I need to.
Good for you. And you know what, Zach? And we really appreciate that. So I know once you get settled in your hotel room, I know you're going to do all the necessary reading and research, and you're going to cut sound, and you're going to be up until 3 a.m. grinding, getting ready for tomorrow. And that's why we love you and appreciate you, Zach. Thank you so much for doing this. It just means the world. That sounded sarcastic. I don't know why I went to such lengths.
I don't really care. It's accurate, Grant. I mean, it is what it is. Me and Mike Clemens, we're grinders. All right?
Yes,
that's what we do.
Yes. Well, thank you, Zach. Enjoy your night in Indianapolis and the game tomorrow.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Grant.
Zach Heilprin. See you. That's Zach Heilprin down there, and you can follow him on Twitter at Zach Heilprin. You're right. This team is so much more equipped for postseason play because they're older and they're deeper and they're more offensively skilled. But it's not like they've lit the world on fire these last 2 weeks. And I wouldn't be lying. I would be lying if I told you that I wasn't thinking during the first 5 minutes of this game, like, what if this team offensively just never regains the form that we had seen, for stretches, especially early on in the season? What if Tanjay never regains that form? And I thought today, again, was a nice first step, right? I think as a collective offensively, it was a nice first step. You're going to have to get a little bit better tomorrow, and then you'd have to play a little bit better on Saturday. But that's also why I'm kind of happy they didn't blow their load today and hit 17 threes and have Tanjay go for 35 when it's not necessary, right? Everyone getting in the layup line a little bit, seeing the ball go through the hoop, getting in the flow of things and getting yourself established for hopefully tomorrow and beyond and deeper into the Big Ten tournament. Okay, we'll get back to taking your phone calls and your comments. 608-321-1670. Going to talk Packers in hour number 2 as well. Andy Herman going to join us at 5:30 Pack a Day podcast. So a lot to get to. Plenty of the Wisco Sports Show coming up.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show, a couple minutes here before we break at 5 o'clock. We'll get an update from Ebo in hour number 2. I want to talk a little bit about the Packers, some free agency tidbits, and Andy Herman, Pack a Day podcast, going to be here at 5:30. Also serving as a de facto Badger postgame show tonight because they beat Northwestern 70-63. And I expected the Badgers to win, and I still think they're very good, but with the way they've played the last 2 weeks, all right, I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief on how today's game went. So I'll take your calls on the Badgers between now and 6 o'clock. We just don't need to stay there if you don't want to. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? You know, when was the last time you accidentally called someone? When was the last time you called the wrong number? I assume that that's what happens when I get those calls. When I hear someone on the other line and they go, oh, and they hang up the phone. I cannot tell you the last time that I accidentally called someone I did not mean to call. It's 2025. Who even has the capacity to remember more than one or two phone numbers? And one of them's yours. How is it that you type a number into your phone incorrect? Who's dialing anything anymore? All the numbers are saved. Like, how do you? Yeah, I'm on tilt. I'm on tilt. You know what? I'm shutting down the phone until 5 o'clock. I try to work with you people. I can't. I can't do this anymore. I can't. I need to take a deep breath. Here's a little commentary from today's game. Well, I go punch a hole in the studio wall about the Badgers being a 3 seed. This is some commentary from the game during the broadcast, the Big Ten Network. Listen to this while I blow my absolute brain.
Clayton will go to the line. You take a look at Wisconsin's resume. Mike DeCourcy projecting a 3 seed right now, and solidly so for Wisconsin.
Yeah, their resume is stellar. Look at those 6 quad 1 victories and that number 19 net ranking. 3 seed projection by DeCourcy. So Wisconsin trying to play their way into some really good rhythm going into the NCAA tournament.
You know, Ebo offered me a beer this afternoon. Ebo offered me, I had a bottle of Highlight in this studio. Ebo's like, you want this? Because the game was on. I'm like, you know what? No, I want to be at my best. I want to be at my best for tonight's show because I know that people are counting on this show to instantly react to the Badger game. People are going to want to call in. I want to be on my A game. And this is what I get. This is what I get. I try to take a call, and what do I get? I get, yep. That's what I get. Thank you. Really good first hour. Really just excellent. This call or this text says, Grant, this is from Coyote Mike, says, Grant, step back off the ledge. I will not. So it says, Grant, I was on hold and my wife called and we have a sick kid, so I had to hang up. Don't get too irked. How is talking about the Badgers for 30 seconds? How is that going to make your kid less sick? How is that going to help your kid? Your kid's already sick. 30, 45 seconds. You talk about the Badger game on the show. How's that going to make your kids? Is that going to kill your kid? Again, I'm not a parent. So I know I don't understand. Until you have kids, you won't understand. I know. Just, oh my God. I might not come back for hour number 2. I might not come back. I might not do number 2 of the show. I might not do hour number 2. Oh, I'm pissed. All right, we're going to get a 2-minute update from Evo. I see people calling in. I'm going to put you on hold. And when I come to this call after the top of the hour, if there's no one there or they hang up, I'm leaving. And I'm just going to leave the mic turned on. So this is on you, callers. Update from Evo, hour number 2 next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the NFL's new year officially began yesterday at 3 o'clock. The Packers already had 2 contracts in the work. That would be with 49ers guard Aaron Banks and Raiders quarterback Nate Hobbs. The Packers and Banks agreed on a 4-year contract, a signing bonus of $29 million, big roster bonuses due in 2026 and 2027, and a cap number under $10 million in 2025. Banks will also average $19.25 million per year, making him the third highest paid left guard in the NFL. Hobbs battled injury throughout his time in Las Vegas. He missed 17 games in 4 seasons, including 6 last year. Yesterday also saw the Packers lose their running back A.J. Dillon to the Philadelphia Eagles, center Josh Myers to the Jets, cornerback Eric Stokes to the Raiders, and defensive tackle T.J. Slayton to the Bengals. Turning to the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks are looking to snap a 3-game losing streak as they welcome in the Los Angeles Lakers to the Pfizer Forum tonight for a tip-off at 6:30. Now, LeBron James will not be in attendance. He's dealing with a left groin injury, even went back to Los Angeles for medical treatment. The Bucks currently sit 4th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 36-28.
They believe in protecting the families and children in our farming communities. Kids love to be included in farm activities, but accidents can happen quickly. Reduce the chance of injury by making sure your farm is a safe environment for adults and kids. Learn more at ruralmutual.com.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
The Wisconsin Badgers are moving on in the Big Ten tournament. That's after defeating Northwestern 70-63 down in Indianapolis. John Tonje and Nolan Winter both had 18 points. The Badgers will now face UCLA tomorrow at 1:30. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
And now Wisconsin will dribble it out. A test early, and then they played this game in the second half at arm's length. And the Badgers advance to play UCLA.
Greg, what allowed you guys to open this one up midway through the second half?
Well, we got some shots to go down. You know, we got to the free throw line. Thought defensively we were really good for the most part the whole second half.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Oh. Hour number 2, Andy Herman in a half hour. I want to talk a little bit about the Packers and the moves that they made this week and where I feel like they currently sit in the division. I tweeted about this last night. People lost their mind, so we should probably address it on air. And I'll continue to take your calls or try to take your calls on the Badgers beating Northwestern today. 70-63. I swear, if I keep taking calls and people hang up or there's nobody there, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to leave the mic on, and nobody gets to have a radio show. Nobody's going to get to enjoy themselves over the next 57 minutes. So if that's what you want, go ahead and call in and hang up. But that will be that. So your calls on the Badger game. I also want to get to the Packers as well. Andy Herman coming up. 608-321-1670. Let's give this a try. Let's spin the revolver. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? That's excellent. If there's no caller on here, I'm leaving. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, on the I-10, back to Phoenix. Let's go.
Oh, I've never been happier to hear your voice, Colin. What a game for our Badgers today, and you're headed back home. What a day for you.
Yeah, and I think some of those phone calls, or at least one of them, was my fault. I was calling. I was getting into a dead zone, so I hung up. I wanted to save the quality of your radio show, so accountability, that's on me.
I can appreciate that. I appreciate that. I don't want you calling from a dead zone, so I thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of dead zones, Northwestern dead. Sorry about it. Great win, I guess. Maybe not great, but, you survive in advance. That's the name of the game in March. Good to see Kamari McGee. Good to see Klesmit. And, we did give Klesmit a little bit of flack this year for being a little fat, but he's needed on this team. It's clear as day that he does make an impact. So, credit to him.
Well, and how much better did Kamari McGee look coming off the bench today? I mean, he's like a different player.
Yeah, I mean, Kamari McGee is definition of a role player. So if you ask for anything more out of him, that's just not in his skill set, and that's perfectly okay. He knows his role. He's got a chiseled out role on this team, and we just need to have all the pieces around it for him to shine.
Well, and I said this with Zach. We throw around the term spark plug. He is. I don't know if there's ever been a more spark plug player than Kamari McGee.
Spark plug doesn't do anything without the Pistons. And that's really what Max Klesmit, John Blackwell, Tanjay, they're all the Pistons, the engine. The spark plug is useless without those guys doing their job.
You need something to spark, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
A spark plug by itself, it doesn't serve any purpose.
Amen.
This is why I like talking to someone with any clue of engineering and how things work. That's a good extension of the analogy. Like Kamari McGee just looks so much more comfortable and effective in the role that he played today, partly because Max Klesmit was back. Obviously, that shifts him out of the starting lineup, but it puts all of the minutes back in balance to have everyone healthy again. And good for Nolan Winter gutting it out. He didn't even know if he was going to play today. He was probably their best player today. It was nice to see Tanjay get it going a little bit. I'm glad that he didn't waste a 35 performance on those bums from Evanston because it wasn't needed. Might need it tomorrow, might need it this weekend, probably will need it at some point this weekend if they keep advancing. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Brenda.
Hey, Brenda. How's it going?
Hey, good. So first of all, you're going to need something harder than Miller High Life. Go raid Ebo's desk and get some hard stuff.
There's liquor everywhere in this studio. And I'm pretty sure if I just started opening drawers, I would find bottles.
Right. So you're going to need something harder than Miller High Life. You need some good stuff. Okay. Second of all, you can tell you're not married without kids because first of all, if you have a sick kid and you're calling your husband, dead husband better answer because happy wife, happy life. So
this is true. The wife wouldn't understand that the husband is calling a radio show. That's not something that would.
Not with a sick kid at home.
It's not a good excuse.
No. You will learn that very, very quickly once you are married and or have a child.
I mean, the kid's not going to get less sick.
No, well, what if the kid needs to go to the ER, or what if the kid's on the way to the hospital? You better answer that phone. If there is a sick kid at home and your wife is calling you, you better answer that damn phone because otherwise you're not getting nothing for like weeks.
I suppose. But if you're getting silent treatmented, then more time to call sports radio shows. Well, that's not that doesn't make for a good marriage, though. Doesn't make for a good marriage.
Yeah, no. Trust me. And for the Badgers, I mean, a W is a W. It was not the prettiest W, but we'll take it. And hopefully they clean some stuff up before tomorrow.
I don't want their prettiest W yet. That's a great call, Brenda. Thank you. I don't need their prettiest W. I just wanted to see the ball go through the hoop, proverbially and literally. Like, it was nice to see the ball go through the hoop because one of the things that I wanted to see today is hit some threes, start to build a little confidence. Tanjay get going a little bit, feel like he's ready to show up tomorrow and ball. And Kamari McGee make some short corner threes. Klesmit getting a little bit of a feel. Like, just build a base to get the ball rolling through the rest of the weekend. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, Ed.
Ed! What's up, Ed?
Hey, bro.
Hey, bro.
Hey, I like your analogy about the spark plug. I'm going to say, and the piston too, but I'm going to tell you who's the gas in that team, and it's Tanjay.
Yeah.
So you got to have good gas so you don't be sluggish. Like, no E88 stuff.
Yeah. None of that liberal corn gasoline.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I was happy with the game today. They played. This team can be very, very dangerous if now they got Klesmit back. And I love your take about Kamari. Yeah, he's not a starter. He's a role player. And I just think if you got three guys on a team that can hit the jumper and then they can go inside, they're going to be a tough out. I'm not talking Big Ten. I'm moving past that. They win one more, they win two more, whatever happens. I'm looking big picture for this team. We had injuries the last couple of years that have really hurt our chances. Now, if we got the injuries out of the way now, let's move forward. I remember Chucky being hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Who else got hurt last year? They had a couple guys that were hurt. So when you're playing injuries, playing players are not used to being starters, you're going to have this up and down. That's why they lost to Penn State. It's very obvious.
Interesting. I mean, they should be good enough even without Klesmit to beat Penn State. Ed, that's a good call. I like the gasoline analogy. Let's just keep building out the car. Why not? I mean, they should have been good enough without. They could be missing 2 or 3 guys. They should have beaten Penn State at home on senior day with a double bye on the line. Then again, you win today and you get to build a little base and build a little momentum. It's not like the lack of a bye completely kills you. You go in tomorrow with a little wind at your sails against UCLA. 608-321-1670, a little bit of a Badger postgame, de facto postgame. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, you just got roostered by Brenda. Boy, she roostered you all over the place there, buddy.
Well, Dave, are you telling me that you're going to be sympathetic to the sick kid? If anyone in this community is going to be on my side, it should be you.
I'm on your side. You got roostered. I mean, Hen calls the show and she roostered you. Happy wife, happy life. No, I go, where the hell's your priorities? The kid's not in the emergency room. I told Brenda, until a kid's able to understand, shut the hell up, then the kid has no part in sports talk radio.
Well,
otherwise, guess what? Hey, by the way, if the kid's sick, why is Brenda calling? Oh,
well, I don't think it was Brenda's kid. I guess I don't know. Maybe Brenda's husband was trying to call. I don't know. It was somebody's husband. I don't think it was Brenda's. Who cares?
I mean, you got rooster. But two things. One, listening to Bill today talking about the Packers schedule and how they probably going to finish last. I wanted to call to Bill and say, Bill, Vikings and Detroit have the same schedule, but it's tougher because their 2 out games are harder. I mean, Green Bay has the third easiest schedule in the division.
Technically,
so
yeah.
I'm not too worried about the schedule because they got to play the both same teams. And Detroit, Minnesota got to play what? Either KC or Chargers, and whoever else they play in that off division. So, my question today is, what did peanut butter and jelly say to that guy when he got that? He crammed that ball back in his throat and he got a technical.
He said,
"I didn't think that guy would offend a Bible or a ghost."
He said, and Zach posted this video after the game from the locker room. Apparently Steven Crowell said, "Give me that S." You know the word I'm talking about. He used a swear word. That's what he said. But the ref told him that the tech was for the stare down, which I know you didn't see it. But it wasn't that long of a stare down. It was pretty brief.
He got teed up. All the trash talking is going on in the game, and they're talking about people's mothers and grandmas and whatever. And he gets teed up because of that.
I don't like it either. But you know, the kids these days, they need to be protected. They're soft, Dave.
Oh, no, I'm actually on peanut butter and jelly side. You're getting teed up just for staring a guy down.
Why do you call him that? It's a funny nickname, but I don't know what it means.
Because he's soft as jelly, and he sticks to the floor like peanut butter.
That's
He can't
actually.
move.
I don't know what I expected your answer to be, but that's better than what I thought it would be.
Yeah. So I mean, other than that, no. But the Badger game today, they only won by 7. I don't know, man. If they don't play better interior defense tomorrow, today they're playing 5-on-2 and they got toasted. So hopefully they play a little better interior defense. Otherwise, yeah. Other than that, tomorrow, hey, I got a nice little 9mm for you. So stop by before you head downtown to State Street.
Stop saying that. That's too much. We appreciate it, Dave. We will be at the Double Tap tomorrow night. Live show there from 4 to 6. Ebo will be there as well. And then 6 to 8, be hanging around playing games. So stop down into State Street if you are a member of our Madison audience, WOZN. Come on down. If not for the live show from 4 to 6, we'll be there afterwards too. So if you work until 6, you can stop by. We'll be there until 8. Playing games and drinking beers, and we'll have tickets to give away for all sessions of March Madness in Milwaukee. So these tickets will be good Thursday through Sunday. You'll get to see the whole shooting match of opening weekend, which is an incredible value. I don't know what those are worth, but especially if Wisconsin ends up there, which is still an outside possibility. That's a heck of a prize. So come on down tomorrow night. Plus, it'll be fun. We'll do the live show and have some drinks, and Ebo will be there. He's a great hang. You know this. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Mike in Eau Claire.
Hey, Mike in Eau Claire. You never sound that enthusiastic about anything, Mike. You're very businesslike. Has anyone ever told you that?
I am. That's the way I handle life, too. I get a ton of work done and don't get appreciated for it. But thank you for the appreciation.
You don't do it to be appreciated. That's not what you do it for.
No, I don't. It's just the way I don't do it on purpose. And no one's ever really said that to me until you just said it now.
Well, you're all business. I appreciate it, Mike. I do.
I try and be cordial and jovial and fun. But I just like to say my speech and let you hammer on it and let everyone else call and do their thing.
I appreciate that. Well, you want to talk Badgers or Packers?
Packers. I wanted to add on what he was like. Our schedule this year, we're going to find out what the NFC North was considered a tough division last year. we play the AFC North.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yep.
With our 4 games, so plus there's the couple extra now that the 17 game schedule. There's an added game, so we're gonna find. I know that the NFC Central going back to the North is playing the AFC North. So Cleveland is a so-so, but I mean, you got the Steelers who are probably going to add Rodgers. We'll see. And then obviously the Bengals and the Ravens. So we're going to get a tougher, the AFC South that's what plummeted that made a lot of the NFC North teams look better than they were, especially the Vikings.
Sure.
But you know what I mean? Like
why do you say especially the Vikings?
Because they went 14-2 and looked like crap for the last 2 weeks of the year. You know,
okay.
You're gonna go that big and then look that bad.
Darnold did probably play a couple of his worst games. He played pretty bad against the Jags. So I know what you're saying. Like the Packers also, like Jordan Love played bad and then got hurt against the Jags, and the Packers were still able to win. So I feel like the AFC South probably inflated all of the teams in the division in their win totals. You're right. Maybe the Vikings most of all. I'd have to go back and look at how Sam Darnold played in those games.
Watching Sam Darnold last year, I like to watch as many football games as I can. There's just throws he makes. I talk to my buddy all the time. Like, I don't like that. He just missed. He missed by like 5 yards. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Like he'll have guys by. I'm not a fan of Darnold. I thought he took advantage of a great situation with great receivers and the solid defense, solid running back, good coaching. I thought Darnold was in the best spot he could have possibly have been in. Good luck, Seattle. Now they lost DK, let go of some receiver. Like we're going to see Sam Darnold again this year in Seattle, and I think you're going to see the real Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
I think so.
But
I think that's a fine prediction, Mike. I appreciate your calls. Always nice to chat. It's probably a good point, right? Because a lot of people are preaching caution with the Packers in 2025 because their schedule is going to get a lot harder, right? Instead of playing Will Levis and Trevor Lawrence, right, and Anthony Richardson, you're going to see Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and potentially Aaron Rodgers if he's with the Steelers, right? Like those quarterbacks are quite a bit better. Those teams are quite a bit better. Now the Browns might suck. We'll see. They're well coached and they have some good players, but that's a little bit of a different situation, obviously. But Mike's point is a good one in that all the other teams in the division also got to benefit from playing the South. I think Detroit would have won the same amount of games because every game in which they were favored, they just opened up a can. That's kind of how Detroit operated. Minnesota, I'd have to go back and look at Darnold's game log. I remember him throwing a couple interceptions against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville stunk, so they got away with it. Minnesota also had to go to, across the pond. They had to go to London to play the Jets. That game was a little weird. The Vikings held on at the end to win that one. I don't want to go back and relitigate the entire schedule of all the teams. Look, put it this way, and this is what we can talk about next. The Packers finished third in the North last year. I still feel pretty strongly that they remain the third best team in the North as of today. And obviously there's some offseason left. Still got to do the draft. But there's not a ton of game-breaking, game-changing players remaining on the market. The Packers could do something wild. They could swing a trade for Trey Hendrickson. We'll see. Maybe. Now, they didn't want to do it for DK Metcalf, but maybe they feel like Trey Hendrickson is a better player and worth whatever money he's about to be paid. He's also a couple years older, so it seems unlikely. My point is, other than some rookies, some draft picks, the teams are kind of set, and I feel like the Packers are still firmly third in the NFC North, and we can talk about that next. Andy Herman going to join us at 5:35. Pack a Day Podcast. A lot more of the Wisco Sports Show coming up.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, Andy Herman coming up in about 10 minutes. I want to transition to some Packers talk. Cone Roller Texan says, love a 4-stroke engine. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Some good automotive analogies for the Badgers win today. They beat Northwestern 70-63. Some good calls, great analysis from Zach Heilprin, who's down in Indianapolis. He joined us back at 4:30, so you can catch that in the pod or rewind the live stream or however you consume the show after the fact. If you're interested in catching up on anything that you may have missed, I think it's worthwhile, especially as we get ready for Wisconsin UCLA tomorrow, that we will discuss. What time is that game tomorrow, by the way? I don't know why I'm asking you. I'm the one sitting in front of the computer. Tomorrow they'll play at 1:30 again, which will be nice because we can watch it at the Double Tap down on State Street, and then we'll instantly go into the show tomorrow night. So if anyone wants to jump on, we'll bring a second headset and we can do a little bit of a live post-game show tomorrow night as well. I had a thought about the Packers last night that I tweeted out. People didn't like it. Whatever. It's the internet. I've just been watching what the Packers have done this week in free agency, obviously. I think Nate Hobbs, the corner, is a nice little addition, a nice option for Jeff Hafley. I think Aaron Banks is a solid tackle. The Packers probably overpaid him, but that's free agency. Those aren't nothing ads. Those are nice players that'll help the Packers win in 2025. All right? But I don't know that corner was anywhere near the top of their biggest issues. If you were to make a list, the things that ailed the Packers most in 2024, 2025, I don't think corner was really near the top. It could address corner. I expected them to do it in the draft, but I don't think it was far from one of their biggest issues. I know offensive line wasn't one of their biggest issues. In fact, you could make the argument that the offensive line was the best unit on the team last year, especially in pass protection. They weren't as good in run blocking, but they weren't awful either. They were pretty good. They were in the upper 25% of football in most metrics when it comes to run blocking. Pass blocking, they were a top 3 team, top 2, depending, and especially if you take Josh Myers' grades out. If you take that data out, I mean, they're number 1. They're right up there at the top. So the Packers made moves to get good players that will help them win in 2025, 2026. Don't say they did nothing. Don't say they sat on their hands. Don't say they signed no-name guys. Just because you didn't know the names of these guys doesn't mean they're not good. Just means they're not the most flashy, sexy names or positions. Okay? My concern with the Packers is that they were 3rd place in this division last year, kind of with a bullet. Detroit was significantly better. Minnesota was significantly better. And while they played the Lions close the second time, the first time at Lambeau wasn't close. And I guess the result in week 4 or week 3 or whenever that was against the Vikings was close, but the Vikings blew doors through the first 2.5 quarters. And then the game at US Bank, it wasn't a blowout, but it was clear the Vikings were better. It was just clear. You know what I mean? And it was clear in the records as well. Minnesota and Detroit were battling for the division in the top seed, and Green Bay was a playoff team, but a couple of games behind. Like, they were clearly the third best team in the division last year, right? Can we all agree on that? Can we all shake hands on that? If you're like, no, they're right. How could you even argue that? Looking at the records, using your eyes, like, they were the third best team in the division last year. We can accept that as fact? Okay. So now this offseason, they had a guard, they had a corner. Meanwhile, Minnesota adds to their O-line. They add to their D-line, right? They re-sign Byron Murphy. They re-sign Aaron Jones. They keep Harrison Smith, which I pointed out on Twitter, like, hey, that's a nice winning move. And everyone's like, oh, he's old. Oh, he's old. Okay, you're telling me that if the Packers would sign Harrison Smith to be a veteran rotational piece on the back end of their defense this year, that you wouldn't love that? Come on, Harrison Smith is probably a Hall of Famer. Really versatile and has a knack for making huge plays. We're going to poo-poo the fact that Minnesota's going to have Harrison Smith back next year. Like, be genuine, please, in the way that you conduct sports talk and the way that you analyze, yes, even rivals. It is possible. The Lions are going to get better on defense simply because everyone was hurt last year. The best player on the Lions might be Aiden Hutchinson, and he missed almost all of last year. He's going to be back. Aleem McNeil is still there. A lot of other pieces who were just hurt are not there. Sure, they lost Carlton Davis, but they signed DJ Reed, who's younger. And if not just as good, maybe even better. Brian Branch is still there. He'll be a year better. Like, the Lions are awesome. And they lost some coordinators. Okay, we could talk about what that means, but I just look around the division and I can't help but think the Packers are firmly number 3 right now. And the Packers have a great draft. The Vikings don't have that many picks, but they could have a great draft too. Detroit's been drafting really well. Why do we think that the Packers are the only team that are going to get better and improve in the draft? Why couldn't the other teams in the division do that too? And I tell you what, the Bears, if their coach has a clue and if their quarterback has a clue, that's a pretty talented team too. I'm not going to be hyperbolic and dramatic and say the Packers are the worst team in the division right now. Like, no, I think the Bears have a lot to prove, and the burden of proof definitely rests on the Bears. I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not giving them credit ever again until I see them actually do it on the field, because I thought last year, like, nah, that'll be a real team. That'll be a legit team, and they were an embarrassment and a disaster. So I am never again giving the Bears the benefit of the doubt. It starts this year. So set Chicago to the side. The Packers aren't as good as Detroit. The Packers aren't as good as Minnesota. And I kind of feel like they needed to make a big move at edge rusher, at wide receiver. I think those two positions were probably their biggest issues down the stretch last year. You can say Jordan Love, who didn't play well, but okay, they're not going to replace Jordan Love. So you need to get him a certified game breaker at wide receiver, or at a certified game breaker at pass rusher. It's kind of interesting. Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst in their end-of-season press was like, yeah, we thought we'd be able to rush with 4. Turned out that was a fail. Yeah, we need to be able to rush with 4. We need to be able to get home with 4. These guys couldn't do it, but you know what? This offseason, we are not adding. We're not signing. We're not bringing in anything proven. You could draft the guy. Okay. Rashawn Gary took like 6 years to be a pretty good edge rusher. Lucas Van Ness is going into year 3, and he's mostly a nothing. And those two guys were top 15 picks. So now the Packers picking at 23rd, even if they use that pick on an edge rusher, why am I to believe he's going to step in week 1 and instantly make an impact? Help the Packers get home only rushing 4. I don't know. I said last night, I hope the Packers grasp the gravity of their situation. I hope that they grasp the fact that 2 teams in the division right now, 2 rivals, are better than them, more talented than them, more experienced, just as well coached, at least in the case of the Vikings. The Lions, look, you got to hope that the brain drain just hits Detroit really hard and that Dan Campbell isn't able to replace Ben Johnson. He's not able to replace Aaron Glenn. And that's fine. I'm willing to buy that. I'm willing to hope for that. I also hear a lot of people with Minnesota, it's like, well, they're starting J.J. McCarthy. Okay, but we said the same thing about Sam Darnold a year ago. Yeah, Minnesota's good, but they're starting Sam Darnold. Fast forward a couple of months now, like, well, Minnesota doesn't have Sam Darnold anymore. Now they're screwed. Oh, the guy that you didn't think was any good? I didn't think he was any good. And I was wrong. So now we're just going to make that mistake again with J.J. McCarthy. Well, he's not going to be any good. Oh, okay, maybe. But what if he's decent? I think the Vikings are better than the Packers. So I worry about the Packers' position in this division, and I more so worry that they don't fully grasp their position. Part of me thinks that up there in Green Bay, they're sitting in the office like, yeah, last year, weird year, huh? Can you imagine? 11 wins, third in the division? That won't happen again. Yeah, I don't know about the 11 wins part, but this team right now, I think, is well-positioned to be third in the division again, unless they knock the draft out of the park. And even if they have a great draft, those picks may not make their impact felt right away. I don't know. I'm worried about the Packers' place in this division. And again, most importantly, I'm worried that they don't grasp their position. Mike tweets in and says, who's playing quarterbacks for the Vikings? The most important position in football. This is what I'm saying. They had Sam Darnold last year, who no one thought was any good. And they won 14 games. And now a year later, we're going to make the same decision. Well, they got Sam Darnold. He's not any good. Are you sure about that? We got 2 minutes here. We can take a really quick call, but then I got to get to break because we got to get to Andy Herman on time. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is John in Cornell.
What's up, John?
Hey, so I agree about the edge rusher thing. The Packers should have swung the fences and got somebody. My question would be, who would you have gotten? If you were the GM of the Packers, who would you have taken or gone after?
Well, I'm not the general manager of the Packers. The Bears got that defensive lineman from the Colts. I would have been interested in that. I'd be interested in Trey Hendrickson. I'd be interested. There's lots of veterans who have changed teams. I don't have a list in front of me. But my frustration is I think you had mechanisms in the draft to improve at corner and line. I don't know that you're going to have the mechanism and the capability in the draft to get better at edge rusher or to get better at wide receiver. And I think those were their two biggest issues last year. You know what I mean?
Oh, agreed 100%. I would not argue that drafting is better. And I do agree because it seems like for the most part, how many defensive ends have been drafted in the first round that have been killer coming out of the gate. And there's only a handful like Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack, maybe Jadeveon Clowney, just to name a few. But
well, none in
else?
Green Bay. All of these guys are low and slow, prospects that have taken years to come along. And I still don't think Rashawn Gary is the type of impact player that most of us hoped for. He first drafted. He's fine. He's good. He's solid. I'm not nitpicking Rashawn Gary. Well, I guess I am nitpicking. I'm not minimizing Rashawn Gary. I'm just nitpicking because that's what you do with high-level draft picks who make lots of money. I think he's a fine player. But Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness, if those two are two players of precedent to go off of, no, I don't think that the Packers can simply draft an edge rusher who's immediately going to come in and perform and help them pass up one of these other two teams that finished ahead of them in the division last year. Let's take a couple minutes. We'll be right back. Andy Herman, Pack-A-Day Podcast, going to join us next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show. Thorson, not Thorson and Heilprin, but Thorson will be taking over at 6 o'clock. He's live at Monks and Sun Prairie. Zach down in Indianapolis. We connected with him about an hour ago now to react to Wisconsin beating Northwestern 70-63, advancing to round 2, or I guess round 2 for Wisconsin, but the third set of games because Wisconsin had the single bye. So they'll play UCLA tomorrow at 1:30. We'll react tomorrow night the way that we have done tonight to however that game goes. We'll be live at the Double Tap down on State Street. Looking forward to that. Right now, we're going to continue our Packers discourse, our Packers discussion. Andy Herman, Pack-A-Day Podcast. Here's about 15 minutes I did with him earlier today. Andy Herman is here. Pack-A-Day Podcast. I've had the pleasure over the last couple of months of joining every other week or so on Sunday nights with Andy and Perry. Andy, this has been a fun week. 2 free agent signings for the Packers. I get the corner. It's just a piece for Jeff Hafley. He might play inside sometimes, might move outside. Okay, that's just a nice chess piece for Jeff Hafley. I think I wrapped my mind around that. The linemen I did not see coming. I did not see them investing big money in a guard. Hard to fault a team for spending on a line, but I didn't see it coming. What was your reaction when you first saw the Hobbs deal? Or not the Hobbs deal, but the other one. Names are a struggle still.
Yeah, no, you're good. Aaron Banks. Yeah, it is a very interesting signing to your point, because you could have made a strong argument, right? Like Rasheed Walker left tackle, maybe Jordan Morgan at left guard, Elton at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, and Zach Tom at right tackle. You've got a starting offensive line right there. And I definitely thought Green Bay was going to invest in the offensive line. I thought that was fairly clear, whether it would be bringing back a Josh Myers. I didn't necessarily think that was going to be the case, but not out of the realm of possibility, whether it be going and getting a couple, sort of mid-tier veteran offensive linemen just to kind of have some depth and some competition. and or maybe getting a second or third round pick on the offensive line again to bring in more depth and competition all across the line. I thought that was well within the realm of possibility. What I don't think myself or you or anyone saw coming was a $77 million investment in a guard, something that the Packers have never really done in the Ron Wolf, Ted Thompson, or Brian Gutekunst era, is spend a ton of money on a guard. If they did, like an Elton Jenkins, for example, even he has the ability to kick out to tackle. They even built incentives into his contract in case he did move out to tackle. Like, we haven't seen this, and especially going out and signing a guard. Like, they have always been the team that has been so great at finding these tackles in the draft, moving them inside to guard and having exactly what you need. And to that extent, again, you can make the argument, Sean Rhyan and Jordan Morgan are right there for you if you needed those. So I think that was the part that was surprising. I've gone through and watched a lot of the tape already, some really unique movement skills. He's a very talented player. I think some consistencies probably need to get cleaned up a little bit, but you can definitely see the vision with Aaron Banks pretty easily, but definitely one that I think caught a lot of people, myself as well, by surprise.
Well, that's why I draw a line between the two signings, because Hobbs is like, okay, he's a chess piece for Jeff Hafley, plays corner. He can slot right in at the slot or anywhere else. That makes sense. The Banks signing, I almost feel like it has to be viewed as the first step towards something else, both schematically. Like, I think it's probably clear that they want to run the football a little bit more physically, and maybe that means less zone and more other looks, right? Especially on the interior line. And you can speak to the intricacies and the details of what that would look like much better than me. And I also wonder, like, okay, so kick Elton Jenkins to center. There's also probably a cheaper way to replace Josh Myers. So I'm wondering if they have any plans beyond simply moving Jenkins to center. Do they feel like Morgan can slide somewhere else? Maybe they're planning for life after Rasheed Walker. What do you think comes next? Because I feel like this is the first step of many to come. It's got to be.
Yeah, there's certainly the potential for that. I think on the surface, if I were betting today, I think Rasheed's going to be the left tackle. I do think, Banks is going to be the left guard. I think Elton's going to be the center. I think Zach Tom's going to be the right tackle. And I think right guard is still the one that's probably up for grabs, with both Sean Rhyan and Jordan Morgan battling for that. If Sean Rhyan is just the clear and obvious one there, and if maybe Rasheed Walker struggles a little bit, could you end up with a competition between Walker and Morgan? Sure, that's a possibility as well. I see people immediately jump to a conclusion of, well, they don't trust Jordan Morgan. I don't think it's that at all. I think they actually think very highly of him, and that's what I've heard as well. Yeah. But so I don't think we need to, again, jump to any of those conclusions. I think the first thing that I look at is we saw this offense sort of go in a different direction with Josh Jacobs this past year and really become a more run-centric offense and really just running a lot of him inside, outside, doing everything they can to get him going. And if you look, a lot of Josh Jacobs' success last year was because of Josh Jacobs. The actual run blocking up front still left a lot to be desired. One of the players that I thought was really good in that regard was actually Sean Rhyan. Another was Elton Jenkins. And one that was not at all was Josh Myers. So, and we know what Zach Tom can do at right tackle. And Rasheed might not be the best run blocking left tackle in the world, but he's certainly not like an albatross, like something you can't live with at that spot. Yep. So I think that my initial view of this, and again, we'll see if Ryan or Morgan maybe win that right guard spot, but I'm immediately intrigued by Aaron Banks, 6'5", 325 at left guard, Elton Jenkins, 6'5", 311 at center, and Sean Rhyan, 6'5", 320 at right guard, and what that could mean for the run game. And you're taking a pretty good run blocker in Aaron Banks and using him instead of a really poor run blocker in Josh Myers. And I do think that has the ability to jumpstart that running game even more. And then all of a sudden you get a Marshawn Lloyd hopefully infused in that offense. And I think we could see a very, very fun running attack, which was already a fun running attack this past year. I think that running attack just got potential. I don't want to say significantly better, but definitely better.
More focused. And they're definitely enacting on maybe some ideas or concepts that they were unable to or didn't have the manpower to do last year. The Jordan Morgan angle of this is fascinating because you can make either case. You can say they don't trust him, so they brought in Banks, or you can say they trust him so much that they brought in Banks because they have bigger plans for Jordan Morgan. So it's a little bit of a Rorschach test. And
just really quick on that too. I think what we always have to remember with Goody, we love living in 2025. We're in the here and the now. We are looking at everything as it affects the Green Bay Packers this upcoming season. To your point from earlier, number one, like they're going to have injuries. Like you need at minimum 6 starting offensive linemen. Like that's just it should go without saying. Green Bay got extremely lucky last year up until really the playoff game with injuries. And then in the playoff game, we saw Jenkins is down, Myers goes down, Jordan Morgan was already out, and they were in nightmare town, especially against that Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. So number one, you need to have at least six. Number two is you look ahead to 2026, and Rasheed Walker's an unrestricted free agent. Zach Tom's an unrestricted free agent. Sean Ryan's an unrestricted free agent. Elton Jenkins has a $20 million salary cap savings if you want to get off of his deal and go in a different direction. Like you're right now looking at, I'm willing to bet, Grant, I'm not a huge gambling guy, but I'm willing to bet Zach Tom's going to be on this team in 2026, regardless of him being an unrestricted free agent or not. Even if you want to pencil him in for sure, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, and Aaron Banks are the only three that I can tell you with a level of certainty are going to be here. So it's not necessarily, we know that Banks, based on his contract, is going to be a starter this year, probably at left guard, but this is still to gain future assets and depth for not just this year, but 2026 and beyond as well.
And I'm never going to fault a general manager for investing in the O-line, because the first thing you do is rip a general manager who doesn't invest in the O-line.
Big time.
Maybe there's a better way to do it or smarter way to do it, but I think on its face, anytime you invest in the O-line, it's a good thing, and Gutekunst deserves credit for that. Andy Herman is here, Pack-A-Day. My question or my concern is, I think they had means to address the O-line and maybe corner too in the draft. I'm not sure they have the mechanisms in the draft to get the help that I think they need for 2025 at wide receiver and edge rusher. So let's talk about that. It's clear that those positions are something that they're either okay with what they have on the current roster, or they plan to address it in the draft. And that worries me a bit.
This is sort of the interesting aspect of this, right? Because the first thing that we talked about a lot, and I think you and I talked about it on Pack-A-Day as well, is at wide receiver, there was DK Metcalf and Devontae Adams that were potentially available. And then you sort of got to this point of, after that, there just really wasn't anything. There's nobody out there that you look at and it's like, oh, that's a clear and obvious upgrade. This team has good wide receivers. They don't need good wide receivers. They need a star. They need a stud, or at least a field stretcher, right? And those sort of players just weren't available almost at all. And the two that were, Devontae Adams, I don't think he got everything he wanted in LA. Like Yeah, he got the city, he got the quarterback, he got the coach, he got the competitive team, he contracts everything he wanted. I don't think Green Bay was going to beat that out, period. DK, listen, I think Green Bay probably did have some level of interest in DK until they found out $30 million per year on a 5-year contract. Like, nobody got a 5-year contract, and I guess a 4-year extension, but still 5-year contract and a 2nd-round pick for DK. A massive price to pay. I don't think Green Bay was just never passed the sniff test for Goody to do something like that. And then it just became like, all right, well, you better do it via the draft, because there's not really a free agent or trade out there that makes a ton of sense after those two players. The defensive end, I think, is the really interesting one to me, because we heard Goody specifically say, hey, we need to win with 4. That needs to be better. Like, we have to be an impact team when we're rushing with 4 guys. Like, you could hear the urge. Like, he didn't have to say the word urgency that time. We heard the urgency in his voice when he was talking about the defensive front. Yet here we are on Thursday, and nothing. You know, the only thing that the defensive line has done so far is lose TJ Slayton. They have not done anything else. And I do think the defensive tackle position is very ripe and deep in this draft. And I think you can find some players there. I do think, there are defensive ends that can help you, but we saw, Green Bay has taken Rashawn Gary and LVN in the first round before, just because you take even if they take a first rounder, right? And those were top 15 picks.
15 picks.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Even if you take one this year, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be able to come in and be an impact player. So that is the one to me that is very perplexing at this point in time. And maybe they get a bit piece in a Dante Fowler or something like that, but it's tough to say like, oh, now they're this feared defensive front. And that to me is the biggest question mark that still needs to be addressed. And I know Trey Hendrickson's still out there. I'm not exactly holding my breath, but that would be the sort of star, off-season move that I think we were all kind of hoping for this offseason.
Quick follow-up before the last question. Do you think Goody has that much belief in Van Ness to pop? Is that it? Is it the coaching change? Because he has to have some level of internal belief in that unit.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that it's specifically LVN. I do think he has more belief in this defensive line that they can be better than what they were a season ago. And to be fair, they were still, like, we look at it, I think they were top 10 in sacks last year. It was right around there. And then, they were still a top 10 defense in pretty much everything this past year. So if their defensive line, even just internally, can improve a little bit, and they're obviously going to get a new defensive line coach, I think he probably has some hope in that. But I think the bigger thing here is I don't think you necessarily look at it that way. And you almost look at each of these individual free agent options individually and say, is this a good move for the Green Bay Packers? And he might have just got to the point where Josh Sweat was a bit too far of a contract. Milton Williams, I think, was the biggest free agent signing out there for New England. They gave him a massive contract. It might have just got to the point where they were interested in a lot of those guys, but just not at the prices that they ultimately went for. And then you have to pivot in a different direction. And now we're going to, I think, have to see where Goody pivots, and hopefully he can find a piece that really can be an impact player on the defensive front.
The Packers finished third in the division last year. The Lions were excellent. So were the Vikings. It's not really I'm not dismissing the Packers, what they did last year. The division's excellent. But Minnesota, the way I view it, has only improved their roster. Detroit's going to get a lot of guys back and healthy, and they've made some really nice moves too. The hope has to be that, I guess, Minnesota's quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, can't do it, and the hope has to be the brain drain hits Detroit. The way I view it at this point in the offseason, but it's a daily show, you understand that, I think they're still third place in the division. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, it's really interesting sort of scenario. So first of all, just to go back for a second, they were 8th in sacks last year. The second thing is, as far as where they are in the division, one thing that I would say to some extent, one, we know Chicago's going out and really booing their offensive and defensive lines. They get Ben Johnson. They're having a nice offseason. The burden of proof is still on Chicago to show that they can hang with the 3 other teams. And I think that's the first thing. But they're definitely getting better. And I think they've attacked this offseason in a very smart way, which is painful to say. And I
kind of put the Bears on the side. I don't lump the Bears in with the other 2 teams for that reason. You've done a lot of good things, but after last year, I'm not going to trust that you're going to make a jump until I actually see it.
Very, very fair. And I think I wish more Chicago Bear fans would view it that way. But we digress. As far as Detroit goes, like you said, losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, they go out and get DJ Reed, but they lose Carlton Davis, and they lost Zeitler at guard. I think there is going to be some downgrades, but this is a big one. Aiden Hutchinson is also back, and this was a team that was pretty banged up. And if they can stay healthier, and especially if Hutchinson can stay healthy, that's going to be a huge boost to them. There's also sometimes teams get stale. And this is also a team that hasn't been able to win a playoff game. So is Detroit on the cusp? Is this finally the year that they're going to make that run? Or did they take that step back and teams start to catch up with them a little bit? And now we're starting to see a little bit of the decline from the superpower Detroit team. And then Minnesota, to your point, J.J. McCarthy or whoever ends up at quarterback is going to be the massively interesting question. I think they continue to make a lot of really smart upgrades to their team. They are another team that really focused in on the trenches, which I think was smart from their side of the ball. But the quarterback one is going to be really important. I think they have a great setup with obviously unbelievable wide receivers. They improve the offensive line. Darisaw will be back. And then you've got, a really smart coach in Kevin O'Connell. And then the quarterback's coach as well, Josh McCown. They've got it set up perfectly for McCarthy, but that's still a rookie quarterback coming off a massive leg injury. Can he just go in and all of a sudden make that offense hum? I think that's what's going to be the real question there. And expecting what basically will be a rookie going into that spot and just taking that offense and doing what, as far as Sam Darnold goes, imploding at the end of the year, up until that point, he had a phenomenal year. So trying to repeat that is definitely going to be tough as well.
I'm just a little skeptical of the skepticism of J.J. McCarthy, because last year no one thought Darnold would be any good.
Oh, yeah.
And then after the season, it's now Darnold's not there to save him anymore. Now they're stuck with McCarthy. It's we didn't believe in the last guy either, and they won 14 games. So
yeah, I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be good.
Well, he doesn't have to be amazing. He just needs to basically not be terrible. And
Just
that was
be
also
Sam
his
Darnold.
job at Michigan, and he did it well. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I know the offseason's early, but a loaded division. The Packers have their work cut out for them. Andy, I appreciate it. We listen to Pack a Day, and I suppose I'll be on this weekend or sometime soon, and we'll talk more.
Should be the case. I hope to talk to you this weekend.
Thanks, Andy.
Appreciate it.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wrapping up the show, Ebo standing by down at Monks in Sun Prairie. So if you're a member of our Madison listening audience, stop on down, enjoy some food, watch some of the college basketball, say hey to Ebo, enjoy the show. And tomorrow, you can join us at the Double Tap on State Street. We'll be there around 3:30. I'm going to do the show from 4 to 6 there. Then we're going to hang around and have some drinks. Ebo mentioned karaoke. That will be later on in the evening. But if you want... Afterwards, Ebo? Oh, there you are, Ebo. You're not... You are. Are you karaokeing tonight at Monks? You got about 30 seconds. What do we got coming up?
I am, but everyone's telling me to shut up. So I will stop. I'm going to refrain myself.
They don't want to hear Neil Diamond?
Tomorrow night after an unsanctioned work event tomorrow night.
Okay. Well, I'll join you in karaoke tomorrow night. I will see you tomorrow night at the Double Tap. Ebo, have a good show.
Smooches. Love you.
See you. Love you as well. Join him at Monks. I'll be back tomorrow at 4. Join us down on State Street at the Double Tap. Never miss a Friday show. Hope to see you tomorrow.
You better find something wrong with